what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling. Much appreciated you guys watching today's video, and as I promised yesterday, going to give you guys a recap of my season, my tournament performance. Hopefully you guys can, from the whatever successes and failures I had, maybe you guys can learn in your own fishing to help catch a few more fish and not make the same mistakes I did. So I think you might find that interesting. We'll break down the year. And I'm just heading back now from the Bassmaster Open at Lake Hartwell, heading back home. And man, guys, when I was going through Atlanta last night, I was going through Atlanta about 6 or 7 o'clock. And you know, you guys have been through Atlanta, you know how big of a nightmare it is. There was 5 different times when I was going through Atlanta there that I had to sit in a traffic jam because goobers had wrecks on there. And it doesn't surprise me. I had probably 50 guys. I'm talking, I'd be going through town there and they'd come flying past me in like a Charger or a Camaro or a crotch rocket going over 100 miles an hour in heavy traffic. I don't understand why these idiots drive like that. 5 different wrecks before I got through Atlanta there, just sitting in traffic jam. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. So anyway, let's get into the season here. I want to sort of break it down. Overall, I'm going to say right off the bat, my season sucked real bad. And this isn't anything that hasn't happened before, because man, even when I was at the top of my game as a tournament angler, you know, in the early 2000s, I remember I had one streak where I went 9 tournaments in a row without making a check, and then I made a check like 11 tournaments in a row. I've always been up and down. That's just the nature of the way I approach fishing. But I really wanted to go over this season here and sort of break it down. Like I said, this year sucked. I mean, every single tournament that I fished sucked, and there's 2 different reasons for that I wanted to identify. There's one minor reason and there's one major reason. I'll start out with the minor reason first. First minor reason is the fact I did not practice long enough. Every tournament this year I only had 2 days to practice in, and normally I used to practice 4 and 5 days for a tournament, depending upon the off limits there. When you only have 2 days to practice, and I hear again, I'm not making excuses, I'm trying to explain in retrospect, looking back, what I would have done different. When you have 2 days of practice, you simply can't break down and expand areas. You can't expand a pattern, you can't cover enough of the water, and you're limited to what you happen to find in 2.5 days on the water. And, you know, but for me, like I said, with having the kids at home and having all the work I have to do, about 2.5 days is all I could do. So I really felt if I would have upped that to 3 or 4 days, I definitely would have had some better performance. But again, you have time to do what you have to do. The main thing though, and this is what I really wanted to talk about today that help you guys, is the approach that I took for the season. If you guys remember the first of the year, I told you guys the 2 circuits I was fishing, the Bassmaster Opens and the Plains Division, the payouts in those tournaments and the rewards that you're going for in those tournaments are minimal unless you win the tournament. The only thing that gives you any type of a windfall profit or any type of a real benefit in those tournaments is if you win the tournament. So my approach to this tournament and the way that I fished every single tournament is I went out there to try to put myself around what I felt was the winning areas, the winning techniques in the tournament. And I can tell you guys right off the bat, that is a terrible approach, because you hear it all the time. You hear the cliche about, oh, I'm going to swing for the fence. Guys are, you know, I'm going for it this tournament. And what happens when you swing for the fence, especially in bass tournaments, you're going to strike out most of the time. And that's exactly what happened to me. I really feel that I got sucked into that cliche about focusing completely on catching big fish every tournament. You guys heard me. If you guys heard the tournament pre-practice stuff that I talked about, it's like I'm going to focus on catching big ones. Just like this tournament, I may zero or I may not catch anything. After thinking about it, and I thought about this a lot last night looking back, that is a recipe for failure when you do that. I think what you have to do, in fact, I know what you have to do is, and the way that I'm going to approach tournament fishing next year is you have to go out and practice with the intention of wanting to win the tournament. But what happens is if you get out there and practice and it's simply not happening. Like, same what happened for me at Lake Hartwell. If you're focused on catching big fish and you can't figure out how to catch big fish, you can't continue to fish for big fish. You have to catch what you're going to catch. And I think what you have to do, let's say you get out there for a day and a half or 2 days of practice and you can't figure out the big fish. I think what needs to be done, and what I'm going to try to do next year, is if I don't feel like I'm on the type of fish that will get a high finish, a top 10 or a win, I'm just going to go out there and try to catch as many fish as I can to get a check, and not bomb out if you're not catching big fish, because that's basically what happened. Is I just stayed with what I felt was going to catch big fish, and I didn't do anything that I knew to do how to catch limits of fish, because I wasn't interested in that. But what happens is when you do that, it's such a low percentage way to go about fishing that it usually never ever works out. And I think a lot of people out there that are consistent fishing and that are consistently high in the year in standings, they go out and they just try to catch maybe a limit of fish, and once they catch a limit of fish, they might go for a kicker. I think that's a really good approach to it, because because another thing I was doing is I was thinking about, and I was looking back at the tournaments over my career that I've ever won, and most every one of those tournaments that I won, I did not go out trying to win the tournament. It's like it just unfolded, it just happened. It's like through the course of fishing, I just figured out how to catch the bigger fish, but it wasn't my intention to win the tournament. I mean, yeah, everybody wants to win when they go out there, but it wasn't my intention to find specifically big fish. I just went fishing. So that's just that in a nutshell, guys, that's what happened. Why I sucked so bad this year is I had the wrong mindset of I was just going to go out and I was going to fish what areas I thought that held nothing but big fish with big fish techniques, and it freaking bit me in the butt big time. So big fish guys, I'm telling you right now, big fish will, in practice especially, will throw your tournament away, because there's very seldom times where you can go out and target nothing but big ones. I mean, it happens once in a while, but normally you're very inconsistent, especially over the course of 3 days. So my approach probably next year is I'm going to go out and I'm going to look back at the tournaments I've won throughout my career, and I'm going to try to sort of readopt and refresh myself and remember what that approach was when I won those tournaments, and try to get into that flow with it, because it did not work out for me at all. This was an absolute suck year in terms of tournament performance. But again, you know, it took me all year to figure out sort of what I did wrong, but at least I think I figured it out. So we'll go into this never-ending experimentation. You never stop learning, man. It's like, it's every single year, you guys, you're better than you were the year before. Even though I sucked this year, I'm a better fisherman right now than I was when I won the most tournaments in my career 20-some years ago. I know more about fishing. Sometimes what happens in fishing is too much knowledge can hurt you, because you reflect on the things that's worked before instead of keeping an open mind. So we're all students, man. I'm a student just like every one of you guys out there. I try to learn from every day on the water. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, and that's why bass fishing is the most difficult sport on the planet. I always say it. So anyway, guys, much appreciated you guys following me all year. We had real good views on the videos for the tournaments. Thank you very much for following me. I really appreciate that. Thanks everybody at Lake Hartwell that came up and introduced themselves to me. I had a bunch of people that came up that watched the channel. That really means a lot to me when you guys take the time to come up and just say hi to me. I really appreciate that. So we'll talk to you guys later. See you.